Greetings, friends. Welcome to another edition of the human condition from the sitting position. Just thought that one up for you. Um, so, we're going to do a couple of Zazen meditation sits today. And we'll start by taking our seat. You can kneel in the Seiza position if that works for you. You can sit on the edge of your chair. Ideally, you've sealed your phone in a Ziploc bag and thrown it out the window into the toilet or into a garbage disposal unit and turned the unit on. But barring those things, if you can just turn it off and take it out of the room, that would be good. So ideally, you've got hour and 15 minutes, give or take now, to just sit and breathe without the part of your brain that's always attuned to potential distraction without that having anything to do. Just you and your cushion. So you take your seat. I will describe the Zazen position from the traditional sitting position. If you're sitting on a chair, just sit on the edge of the chair with your feet flat on the floor and your back not against the back of the chair, but like I said, you're sitting on the edge of your chair. And I'm going to read you a little something from a book called The Path to Bodhidharma, which is it's a book on Zen from a teacher named Shoto Roshi. And it's a very good book. I recommend it. It's weirdly formatted and it has this strange feel of it's not so bad, but it's a little touch weirdly formatted. And the top cover is lame, but it's a great book. So Shoto Roshi, who is a living teacher in the Rinzai Zen tradition, one of the few kind of Japanese trained Rinzai teachers alive today, and he received transmission from Muman. I think it was Muman Yamada Roshi. He was one of the great Zen masters of the last century. So he's really one of the last of his kind, and I find his teachings refreshing. And he's also just got very practical tips, a lot of which are physical, to help us actually take our seats and sit and get out of our heads and really take the meditative posture seriously. So here's something that he says that I found helpful when I was reading it today. When you start a period of meditation, and you can be sitting in your position now because he's going to give us a little tip or a little practice that we can do right now. When you start a period of meditation, particularly if you are a beginner, straighten your spine by leaning forward slightly. Then leave your pelvis tipped forward and your lower back curved as you bring the rest of your trunk to an upright position. So basically, he's reminding us to get that curvature in our spine. He's trying to mitigate against humping your back out like this. He says later on in this book, he says it seems easier to kind of hunch when you're sitting, but you want to get that curve in your spine, like curve of a snake, the curve of the snake's body when it's slithering, just a little bit of a curve. You can also do this by tilting your pelvis forward, right? But leave your trunk upright, the trunk of your body upright. So you tilt your pelvis forward, leave your trunk upright. Now you've got a curve in your lower back. You're sitting up straight. So then he says, leave your pelvis tipped forward and your lower back curved as you bring the rest of your trunk to an upright position. Then he says, continue to rock forward and backward until you find the proper point of centeredness. This is a tip I remember getting very early in meditation. I haven't done this in years, but this is a tip that I got very early in meditation. You sit down, you pivot your hips, and you just kind of rock backwards and forwards a little bit until you find your proper upright position. Again, the point is to be straight but not rigid. So your nose and your belly button or your diaphragm are parallel. You're breathing deeply into your diaphragm, or what Harada Roshi calls the tanden. Um, Now he says tanden is an interesting concept slash physical reality. How Shono Harada Roshi describes it is, think of the tanden or the hara not as a specific point on the body, but as something that appears when a number of factors are in proper balance. The tanden is, in a sense, the expression of an overall condition. So it won't appear unless the upper trunk is relaxed, the back is straight, but it also has that curve down by the hips. When this happens, he says the ki or the vital energy flows freely. And in another spot, he says, um, quite literally, that the tanden, I forgot where that is in here. The tanden is, he says, it's about an inch below the belly button and behind the belly button. So that's, you're breathing down there, more towards that area of your body. You're lowering your breath. You're sinking into it, if that makes any sense. You're sinking into your seat and you're becoming solid. You've got this pyramid shape. Your knees are touching the floor. You want to make sure they're touching the floor. Even if you have to sit on several cushions to raise your butt so that your knees finally drop and hit the floor, that's totally fine. Just a lot, it's this is not an entirely natural sitting position for most of us. To just sit on the floor, sit on a cushion, and our knees naturally hit the floor. So your hamstrings might be tight, your hips might be tight. Don't be ashamed to just raise your butt until your knees hit the floor. You may even want to have a blanket folded in half or folded into quarters and put that under your knee if you or under both knees if you still can't make your knees touch the ground. But uh, if you can take the concept of a very solid seat seriously, it will really help your sitting. It really helps you commit to the 25 minutes, 2 25-minute sits will do. The body is really important. Where your uh, body goes, your mind follows. Elsewhere in this book with this cheesy cover, Shono Harada Roshi talks about, he illustrates this point by saying, you walk into a new room and you start seeing all kinds of things. Your body has taken you into a new room, and your senses receive everything in that new room, and then your mind starts working. And his point is, get your body straight, get your body clear, and then your mind will follow. So it can be a little bit intimidating to sit down, do a meditation sit after a busy week where we've been in our heads and stimulated 24/7 mostly. Um, but it's fortunate to receive instruction like he gives in this book that puts the body first, so we have something to do with ourselves. We're not just tasked with this um, job of getting this brain under control. Actually, we're just going to take our seats, right? So our knees are touching the ground, and we've got that curve in our hips, and our trunk is upright. And the way we sit in Zen is with our eyes open, with a soft gaze. In terms of why we keep our eyes open with a soft gaze in the Zen school, here we have Harada Roshi saying, senses, particularly sight and hearing, provide the most basic link between the outside world and the activities of the mind. Unless we learn to integrate such sensory input with our zazen, our training will be of little practical use. So it's just easy to get very lost in your head and um, uh, escape reality when you close your eyes, to get lost in a world of thinking and pushing the world out of our sitting. But we include the world in our sitting. So if there's Ideally, you're in a quiet place, but if there's some noise, then that just becomes part of your sit. Okay. So, needless to say, you can turn your computer away or do whatever you want to do with your computer. You don't want to be facing your computer when you're sitting. What to do with your hands when you're sitting? You can just lay them flat on your thighs. That's a fine sitting position, which I do sometimes. In Zen, we also do a mudra, which is we take the left hand and we put the thumb right here like this. And it's kind of a gentle pop, gentle mudra. It's like this. So the right hand is taking left thumb like this, and then we just lay this in our lap. Kind of ties the posture together. And take a few deep breaths in through the nostrils and out through the nostrils. That's what you're breathing through is the nostrils. Your lips are lightly touching, tongue is on the roof of the mouth. And your eyes, like I said, are a soft gaze about 3 or 4 feet ahead of you on the ground. Soft gaze is you're not focusing on the ground, but you're including your peripheral vision. Take a few deep breaths. And basically, once you've taken your posture, uh, throughout the sit, you'll be doing micro adjustments to your posture. You'll sort of feel um, some part of your body becoming lax, like sort of maybe you're drifting a little bit forward, and you do that adjustment, and you sit straight up again. There's this constant awakeness manifested in the body when we're sitting. It's an We're doing the simplest thing we can do with as much attention and focus as possible. We're just sitting and breathing, or really just sitting, animating the posture with breath. But even within that, we're making these micro adjustments to our posture as we go along. Now, I'll read you one last thing from Shonoharada Roshi, which I found to be helpful, and then we'll start our sit. He says, focus on each individual breath, one after another, centering your consciousness in your tanden, or diaphragm, and filling it with energy. Breathe each breath totally, then forget it and move on to the next. Superficial concentration is useless. You must feel that the respiration is piercing through the ground to the very ends of the universe. Let no gaps appear between your concentration on one breath and the next. So he's saying just hold that concentration on the exhale and the inhale, and let no gaps appear in that concentration. So he's giving us a good instruction on what to do with our mental energy when we sit. Continue like this, one focused breath, cutting off all thought of the one before, cutting and cutting and cutting until there is no room for random ideas, no room for concepts of self, no room for inner noise. Your body, the zendo, which is where you're sitting, your room right now is a zendo, it's a place to sit, place to do Zen or practice Zen. Your body, the zendo, the entire universe are all contained in this total focus on the breath. In this utter singleness of mind, there remains nothing to hold on to, nothing to depend on. He is a old school Zen master, and so his language is sort of has that samurai flavor to it. Another way of looking at this is just you give yourself completely to the breath. You surrender completely to the breath. Nothing to hold on to. for these two sits that we've committed ourselves to today. There'll be plenty of time to pick up our thoughts, our responsibilities, our concerns, our fears, our ambitions, our hopes, our dreams. We can pick that all up after this sit. But I think one of the things that Shoda Harada Roshi is getting at here is the total giving to this very simple activity with limitlessness, and that requires a kind of surrender of thinking, of ego, of ourselves. Okay, so taking your sitting position again, and I forgot my little bell. I'll get it for the next sit, but for now, we'll start our sit now. We'll sit for 25 minutes, and then I will let you know when that sit is ended. Then we'll do a 10-minute break, 5 to 10 minute break, and then we'll do our second sit, and then we'll conclude with a question and answer. And you don't have to send me any messages while we're sitting because I can see it in the corner of my eye. And whenever I get a message when we're sitting, I feel like someone's sending me a message saying we've lost audio or something. So I always look. So we'll begin our sit now. Okay, that concludes our first sit. We'll take a 5, 6 minute break. You can use the restroom or just stretch out your legs a little bit. When we come back from the sit and you get into your Zazen meditative posture again, just change the cross of your legs. So, for example, right now I've got my right foot up on my left thigh. When I come back, I'll put my left foot up on my right thigh. Okay, I brought my meditation bell, so we can start the sit with three bells. Sit for 25 minutes, and then we will end the sit with one bell, so you can resume your cross-legged Zazen meditative posture. Or if you need to sit on a chair, that's perfectly fine. Just sit on the edge of the chair, your butt on the edge of the chair, feet firmly on the ground, facing ahead. So I'm saying this because someone did a chat here in the messages talking about the seated position. Just uh, we all take the simplest position that we can take, given the limitations of our bodies, and we commit to that position for the 25 minutes. So ideally, you're not moving or shifting your legs or looking around the room during this whole 25 minutes. So you're taking a position that you can commit to without moving for 25 minutes. So if that's sitting on the edge of the chair, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. The point is to pick a position and then commit to it for the full 25 minutes. So let's do that now. And then I'll just talk a little bit about Zazen when we finish, and you guys can shoot me any questions you have after we finish. Okay. Okay. You can unpretzel your legs and share a few thoughts. And while I do so, if you would like to type in any observations or share anything from the sit or ask any questions, you can do so in the, let's see here, in the chat section here on YouTube. I, um, it's always interesting giving instruction for a sit because once I start the sit, I find myself having difficulty living up to the instruction that I just gave. Um, I was listening to, I think, Brad Warner the other day, his YouTube channel, Hardcore Zen, and he was talking about meditation. And he was giving a good reminder, which is that it's actually really hard to sit. I forget exactly how he put it, but it was very raw. It was like he just never feels good, and he always feels like he's doing it wrong. And I appreciated hearing that from an experienced sitter. Um, and I don't know. The older I get, the longer I do this practice, the more I start to think that um, that like just trying is zazen. So there's no such thing as zazen meditation. You keep trying to do it sincerely and humbly, without expectations, distracting expectations, or heavy expectations. You just keep bringing your attention back to the sitting. And people ask me sometimes, well, am I thinking about breathing? Am I thinking about posture? Like, um, you you're bringing your mind to posture and breath so completely that the thinking mind dissolves into the posture, right? um, when that happens, then usually you come back from that dissolution of self, and you're there again, right? You're back. um, and then the practice is to do it over and to do it over and to do it over and to just keep trying and trying and trying. I mean, my mentor in Zen practice is fond of reminding me that if you read the old koan texts, if you read Hakuin, um, Linchi, none of these guys ever have their enlightenment experiences on the cushion. None of them are ever sitting in the Zendo. If I'm wrong, somebody on Patreon, shoot me a message and let me know if there's a case ever in any of the classical Zen texts of all time where a student or a teacher has some kind of Satori Kensho enlightenment experience on the cushion. It's always the meditation hall is a place of work. It's a place of sweat. It's the do. It's a do. It's a Zen do. It's where you practice. You go to do Zen, practice Zen, train in Zen. It's a shugyo is the word in Japanese, and my understanding of that word is it's like it's a practice or a training that you do with your mind and your body and your being, your whole being. You throw it into the practice. That's the word that I was told is the equivalent word of religion in Japanese Zen, shugyo. It's this training. Um, so I say this simply because it can help you manage it helps me manage my expectations to remember this, that it's not easy, and that if it doesn't feel good when I sit down and I spend two sits or more doing zazen, doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong. Like, that's really important to keep in mind. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Just keep doing it. Keep trying. The trying is the practice. And then now when you get up and you go into your day, just try to keep that awareness and that attention going. in the different activities that you do. You'll find yourself, you'll remember. I find myself remembering to wake up and pay attention to the person in front of me, pay attention to the task that I'm doing. My mind is always drifting. There are these patterns that the mind gets into. Um, it's very strange. It's my mind. It should do what I say, but it really doesn't. And it's not my mind, I guess. But there is this capacity that we have to pay attention as the mind wanders. Um, as we go throughout our day, to focus on the tasks and the people in front of us. And in that way, then the activities, responsibilities, and relationships that we are in our life become our shugyo, or our practice, the thing that we're giving our full attention to. Okay, looks like we've got a heated discussion on um, in the chat section about sitting on a chair. Daito Kokushui sat on a chair. I did not know that, Matt. Thank you for saying so. Mike Wright thanks us for sitting. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, this is in response to Sakura Kinamoto was talking in the chat section here about sitting on a chair since his joints are wrecked, or her joints are wrecked, their joints are wrecked. Yeah, that's okay. Like I said earlier, it's whatever you can do. Um, I remember my mentor was telling me he went to Japan, um, and he said he said there was there was some ceremony in one of the big temples, and all the roshis, the Zen masters, came out of the woodwork from around Japan to come to do this ceremony. And he said he was looking at them. They were up on, I don't know, they were up on some sort of elevated platform or something. All these roshis. There was all the old guys, right? And he said he had never seen a more motley crew. It was like a rogues gallery of Zen masters. They were like, they're like these old guys, and they're like all hunched and sort of crippled looking as they're sitting there. Bodies are twisted, and some of them are falling asleep up there, and some of them just are just lazily slumped on their cushion. And some of them are sitting very upright and paying attention. And his takeaway was that these everybody manifests the Dharma differently. Even great Zen masters have their own like crooked way of manifesting the Dharma. So if your joints are wrecked and you can only sit on a chair, then that's your particular ride this lifetime. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Um, Anybody have any question they want to throw out there? Or looking at my Zen book again, there's one more thing I wanted to read to you, and maybe we can call it a day. This is the chapter on Zazen in Shodo Harada Roshi's book, The Path to Bodhidharma. I believe that these were probably teishos. So during a retreat, the Zen master will give a teisho. Usually it's on a text of some kind, a Zen Buddhist text or a koan. And the teacher, it's different than a Dharma talk. It's an engagement with a text, like an equal engaging with a Zen master of the past. And so these teishos can be very interesting sometimes. Watching a Zen master practice in front of you with his brain or her brain, connecting with the texts of the past, whether it's a koan text or a sutra, etc. Okay, I'm going to read you this quote from Shodo Harada Roshi here in the Zazen chapter. He's just been talking a little bit about Joshu, Zen Master Joshu, and one of Joshu, one of the koans. A student is asking the teacher, like, what's the great teaching? Like, what does it all boil down to? And the teacher says, have you eaten your breakfast? And the student says, yeah. And then the teacher's like, then wash your bowls. I'll tell you a funny story about that sometime, that koan. But I want to read this to you now. So Harada Roshi says, this story, the story of Josu's bowls, tells it all. The words zazen and training are constantly on our lips, and we never tire of talking about dharma and truth, making it seem as though there is something special and out of the ordinary to be attained. This only proves that our true creativity has yet to come alive. We may have reached a certain understanding on the level of reasoning and logic, but we have still to see the very place upon which we stand. We may have fathomed the workings of the universe, but we have yet to grasp the essence of our very own minds. And here he talks about Zazen a little bit, and I'll close on this paragraph. People often ask me if Zazen can ever be of any practical use in these complex and turbulent times. By way of answering, let's consider the concept of aligning. The word align signifies the idea of situating everything in its proper position relative to everything else. So, first we align our body, then we align our breathing, then we align our mind. And he's describing Zazen in this way. And once these things are accomplished, we find that we cannot be satisfied with aligning only our limited individual minds, but that we must finally align ourselves with the mind of the larger self that pervades all existence. So, some inspiring words for our Zazen practice. Um, I wish you well in your sitting this week, if you do sitting this week. Um, Even if you just do it, I find 5, 10 minutes a day, or even every other day, or even just 1 minute a day. I find doing what we just did, sitting, paying attention to this simple activity, giving my attention, as Harada Roshi said, aligning the mind and the body and the breathing, and then dissolving into that. Just 1 minute a day, if that's all I can do, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, kind of keeps my shugyo on track. Um, so thank you. Ryan asks when my next book will be available. I'm working on it. I actually just sent a proposal out to Shambhala, so we'll see if they want to do another book with me. But if they don't, I'll put it out somehow, somewhere, at some point. But thank you for asking. I appreciate that. And thank you for joining me for this sit. And thank you for being patrons. That is all. Carry on. Bye bye. This closes this edition of the human condition from the sitting position.